Talking now on Brownfield with Travis Kimmel, Director of Agronomic Technology with Advanced Agrilytics. Travis, how are you doing here today?
Doing well, Brent. Thanks for having me on.
Well, thanks a lot for joining us. And Travis, in our previous interview with the Advanced Agrilytics team, we talked about being at the midpoint of the growing season and some of those decisions yet to be made. Travis, what should growers be thinking about now here as we head towards August? We're midway through August already.
Yeah, Brent. As you think about what you are experiencing now in the growing season, and being out in the field right now is critical as we think about assessing what our needs are going to be. Well, for next year coming in 2024, but also right now is the time as you think about the growing season that you've been through, and it's been, as every year, periods of dry. We started out really dry in much of the Corn Belt, and in some cases we've had some excessively wet conditions here as of recent. It just kind of depends on where you're at. But I think the things that what we coach our growers to do, is pay attention to what are you actually experiencing right now in the field? What is the crop actually telling you? Are you seeing visual symptomology or nutrient deficiencies start to present themselves? Where in the landscape are you? Where you're experiencing these? And so what is that environment like? And when I'm talking about environment, where in the landscape are you? Are you on top of the knob? Are you, that acre that we at Advanced Agrilytics, we talk about this low SWI acre or water limited acre. What is that acre like? And then are you finding similar crop response in other areas of the landscape or even other fields, but still in that similar landscape position? And just really, what are you seeing? Dig plants, look at, root exploration. Are there, man-made or mechanically made compaction? Is it root zone compaction? Did it start at planting? Does that help explain? Or is it really truly nutrient limitation, i.e. the soil test and looking at that spatial map or that soil test analysis that you've acquired? And so, we really like to bring that back to our fundamentals and understanding our foundational methodology, specifically around nutrient concentration and diffusion, root interception, those core mechanisms, delivery mechanisms for nutrient uptake to that plant. And so, assessing what's going on right now, and then really, if you could roll back the clock today, what would you do differently? And that's really where we want to challenge our growers. As you think about this, we all know that we don't control the weather. And so that being the case, how can you fortify a crop? And by fortify, I mean set that crop up to really capture when you do get those advantageous rainfalls, specifically early in the season. Can you fortify that crop to weather through some of these periods, the hot and dry? As I look at the forecast in this next week, it's cool now, overcast where I am here in Northwest Ohio. We've received some pretty nice rainfalls, but we know as we're going into this next week, by Sunday, we're going to be in the 90s. And we have a hot week coming ahead. And so that crop, what have I done as a grower or agronomist to help that grower get that crop in a position where it can weather through these stressful time periods?
Well, the team has talked quite a bit about management considerations by environment so far, and you've already touched on it a little bit. How does that thought process apply, Travis, when growers are thinking about spatial critical fertility needs and placement?
Yep. And so you've heard a lot of our team members in previous interviews talk about the three types of environments. And so that water limited. What do I mean by water limited? As you think about if you were standing in the field right now, and maybe some of these listeners are riding in a sprayer cab today, spraying fungicide. As you think about water limited acre, that acre, if I were to describe that to you, that is convex in nature. It's on acres or in the landscape that is furthest away from the water table. And so as you think about a rainfall event, as a water drop or rainfall lands on that particular acre, water runs off of that. And so as you think about final deposition, it may receive that rainfall, but where does it ultimately end up? It's not on that water limited environment. It sheds water away from it. Then we talk about that stable acre. That's more of plateaued in landscape. It may be slightly concaved in nature, but as you think about rainfall events or water movement in the field, it is receiving moisture or rainfall as well, I should say moisture as water moves across the landscape. And so typically these acres are well drained. They're efficient when it comes to mineralization and nutrient use efficiency. And while it does have water coming to it and has increased moisture, it doesn't lay saturated. That's really truly that stable environment. It's the most efficient acres that you have given a field boundary area and or across your operation. And then there's the saturated acre. That's the acre closer to the water table. It is receiving a good amount or a good amount of moisture is coming to it. Its basin is somewhat large in terms of how much water is flowing to that acre, but then it also lays saturated. It's not drained well. These acres may typically perform better in those years where rainfall is scarce, but yet they can still be problematic, especially if they're farmed a little bit imperfect. That's where some of that root zone compaction is when we talk about really that saturated acre, or those acres that can be subject to compaction from other traffic as well. And so those are really challenging acres as you think about nutrient loss, whether that's denitrification and some things that way. So as we think about our spatial fertility concept, and really with those three basic environments in mind, as we think about this, that we use a concept around spatial for critical fertility that utilizes the concept of known mechanisms that control nutrient uptake. So I referenced them earlier, diffusion, root interception, and mass flow. They apply, our methodology applies that scientific approach that identifies these given landscapes that where each one of those uptake mechanisms is most efficient and inefficient, and then altering that critical level that has been defined by university studies and others in the past that we've used for guidelines. Those recommendations, and I think it's important to understand, those recommendations don't take into account nutrient use efficiency or soil water balance on a given landscape. And that's something that we pay a lot of attention to. And so as you think about that, that's really kind of a basis for our fertility management. And it's all in an effort to really, again, as I said earlier, get nutrient into that plant when you have moisture available to you, but then also taking into account or respecting, I guess, that acre that has good soil moisture is most efficient in terms of plant growth and nutrient use. And so that we can really, almost lower, let's just say, what that critical level is for a given nutrient, immobile nutrient, whether that's phosphorus or potassium, so that you can use Mother Nature to your advantage or the landscape to your advantage in terms of nutrient use efficiency. That's really what sets the foundation for us.
Very good. Travis, what do growers need to do now to prepare for their fertility decisions? Do you have any tips you could pass along?
So again, be out in the field right now. We're getting, a lot of fungicide is either being finished up or has been applied, depending on where you're at in the Corn Belt. We're starting to enter into that grain fill period. And so, in terms of corn specifically, lower stalk node retention. We've talked a lot about in the past around sucrose and carbohydrate in that plant. Pay attention to lower leaf retention. Again, is it something that the crop is not getting because of nutrient limitations in that soil solution or soil concentration? Or is it something that you've done as a grower? Imperfections at in and around planting and just management thereof. And so what can you change for next year? And so identifying that right now as this crop is going through those reproductive phases, I think is important. And then be ready for, as we start to talk about fertility, let's talk about soil sampling, for instance. As you think about soil sampling, something that we all need to do, and I'll almost say it's a necessary evil to get good information back. But how you go soil sample, we've talked about this in the past around, and a lot with our growers around soil sample point placement. What are you really trying to accomplish with that soil sample, and what environment are you trying to describe? And so, whether you are in management zones or a straight grid, point soil sample point placement is important for describing that environment. That's really kind of the first step, if you will. And so, working with, whether it's for you out there, whether it's your retailer, of course, for us at Advanced Agrilytics, we'd love to be working with you or helping you through those through that plan. And so, that's where I would say right now we still got some growing season left to do. So be out in the field and assessing what that crop need is, and how you would potentially change some management strategies for next year.
Great information, Travis. How can the listeners get more information from your team? How can they stay connected with you?
Well, you can visit us at our website, www.advancedagrylytics.com. Also, follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter. So a lot of your social media platforms are out there as well.
Thanks a lot for the time and joining us here on Brownfield. Hopefully we can catch up again sometime soon.
Hey, Brent, thanks for the time today.
Again, that's Travis Kimmel, Director of Agronomic Technology with Advanced Agrilytics. I'm Brent Barnett with Brownfield.